The Mafia boss was surrounded by gunmen, until the waitress grabbed his gun and fired first. The rain fell like silver threads over the city, turning cobblestone streets into mirrors that reflected flickering lanterns. In the heart of the district, the abandoned theater stood like a relic from a forgotten time, its doors heavy with shadow, its windows dark and secretive. Tonight, however, it was alive with whispers of power, fear, and greed. Lucian Drax, the man whose name alone could silence a room, walked through the crowd with the measured grace of a predator. Even in a place where danger was expected, he seemed untouchable. Dark suit, steel-gray eyes, and a calm that unnerved everyone around him. He moved like he owned the night. Not the building, not the streets, but the very air. Rumors had followed Lucian for years. His control over the underworld was unmatched, his punishments legendary, and yet whispers hinted at something more. Something almost unnatural. The city said he was no ordinary man, and those who crossed him vanished like mist. Tonight the theater buzzed with uneasy energy. Lucian had been invited, though the word invited was generous. The hosts were merely trying to survive his scrutiny. As he entered, conversation stilled. A dozen pairs of eyes traced his every movement. Men in tailored suits shifted nervously, checking the doors. Guns peeked from hidden pockets, but none dared step forward. In the corner, moving with quiet precision, was Alara. She balanced a tray of drinks, her brown eyes steady, her hands unshaking. To the world she was a waitress, a minor player in the night's dangerous game. Yet there was a light in her gaze that did not belong to someone ordinary. She had seen the world's cruelty, but she had never bowed to it, and tonight instinct hummed in her veins, warning her that the night would erupt into chaos. The murmurs around Lucian rose, a tide of tension and fear. He paused, listening to the whispers, scanning the room with the slow patience of a hunter. He could feel the trap closing around him, the subtle glances, the hands brushing against concealed weapons. Yes, someone had dared to challenge him tonight, and then it happened. From the shadows, the first gun was drawn. A flash of metal caught the dim light, a soft click that echoed in the silence. Then another, and another, until Lucian was surrounded by men whose intentions were clear. Their faces were hard, eyes cold, hands steady. They had rehearsed this moment, certain of their victory. The room froze. A single bead of sweat slid down one gunman's temple. Lucian's eyes narrowed. Calm, almost serene, he surveyed the circle. He did not panic. He did not flinch. The air seemed to still around him, thick with anticipation. And then, a sound. A faint clink from the other side of the room. Alara moved faster than the eye could follow. Her hand found a gun resting on a nearby table, left unattended in the chaos. She gripped it with certainty she didn't know she had, and in a heartbeat, she was beside Lucian. Time slowed. Her finger found the trigger. The shot rang out. One of the gunmen crumpled to the floor. The other staggered, startled, unsure of what had just happened. In that moment, the tide shifted. It was no longer just Lucian's night to survive. It was hers. Lucian's gaze met hers, and for the first time in years he felt a flicker of surprise. Not fear, not anger, surprise. There was something in her eyes that spoke of courage, defiance, and something darker, something hidden that he could not yet name. The gunman hesitated, unsure, and in that pause, Lucian acted. With a fluid motion, he neutralized the nearest threat, his hands moving with the precision of a man who had danced with death countless times. But he did not take the gun from her. He let her keep it. Not out of trust, not yet, but out of fascination. The chaos was brief but intense. Shouts echoed, glass shattered, and the smell of gunpowder filled the theater. And when it was over, the room was still. Silence returned, but it was a different silence now. The threat had passed, but the tension had not. Lucian turned to Alara. "You have fire," he said, his voice low, almost a growl, "and foolish courage." Most people would have frozen. Most people would be dead. Elara met his gaze without flinching. "I don't freeze," she replied simply. A ripple of amusement? Or was it something darker? Crossed Lucian's face. He studied her, and for the first time the calculation in his eyes faltered. Who was this girl who dared to challenge the impossible? Who was this girl who had acted before, thinking, and survived? The night ended with sirens wailing in the distance, gunmen retreating, and Lucian and Elara standing amid the ruin of a failed ambush. The air was thick with rain, smoke, and adrenaline. As Lucian escorted her out of the theater, he found himself walking beside her, neither speaking, yet both aware of the unspoken tension. The city around them seemed quiet now, but Lucian knew it was a fragile calm. Danger was never gone, only delayed. "You shouldn't have done that," he said finally, his voice softer, almost curious. Elara shrugged. Someone had to act first. Lucian studied her. She was small, fragile even, yet her presence felt like a storm. He sensed potential, a force that could rival even his own carefully controlled power. But there was more than that. There was a spark, a hidden depth, and perhaps a curse that she didn't yet understand. He realized with a sudden clarity that she was no ordinary girl, and neither was tonight. At the edge of the street, a black car idled in the shadows. Lucian's men were already there, ready to whisk him away. He paused, glancing at Elara. "Tell me your name," he said. "Elara," she replied, her voice steady. "Remember it," he said, a note of warning, or promise, in his tone. "Because tonight the world just changed for both of us." She looked at him, a question in her eyes, but before she could speak, the distant sound of footsteps echoed through the alley. Figures emerged from the shadows, moving with purpose. Lucian's instincts flared. More trouble, more danger. And yet, he did not reach for his gun first. He watched Elara, seeing the same resolve in her that had saved his life. "Seems the night isn't done with us," he said, a trace of a smile tugging at his lips. Elara tightened her grip on the weapon, her heart racing. She had faced death once tonight, but something told her it was only the beginning. And in that moment, a silent agreement formed between them, not of words, but of understanding. Whatever awaited them next, they would face it together. Lucian stepped forward first, his shadow stretching across the rain-slicked street, a predator ready to confront the unknown. Elara followed, her steps light but determined, her gaze never leaving his. Behind them, the city waited, dark and watchful. And somewhere, hidden in the folds of the night, a threat moved closer, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about power, courage, and destiny. As the car pulled away, carrying Lucian and Elara into the heart of the city, the rain continued to fall, and the world held its breath. For the first time in years, Lucian felt the stirring of something unexpected, something dangerous, something that could change the course of his life forever. And Elara, for her part, felt it too, a connection she couldn't explain, a pull toward a man whose world was darker than anything she had ever known. The storm outside raged on, but inside an even greater storm was beginning, a storm of power, destiny, and the first sparks of something neither of them dared name aloud. The mansion loomed at the edge of the city, a fortress of stone and iron wrapped in shadow. Rain still fell in silver sheets, sliding off the steep roofs and filling the air with a smell of wet earth and cold metal. Lucian's car slid into the driveway, and the driver stepped out, bowing slightly as he opened the rear door. Lucian and Elara emerged from the night, their clothes damp and their hair plastered to their faces. Lucian's eyes swept the grounds, sharp and calculating, while Elara remained quiet, scanning her surroundings. This was no ordinary home. It was a palace built for power, with guards and hidden towers, gates of black steel and walls that had seen countless secrets buried within. "You will stay here," Lucian said as they entered the grand hall, his voice firm.
"Until I know whether you are a threat or an asset." Elara's eyes narrowed, but she did not tremble. "I'm neither."
"I saved your life. That should count for something." Lucian's gaze lingered on her, a faint trace of amusement, or perhaps curiosity, in his eyes.
It does, but courage alone does not protect you from what follows.
The hall was vast and dimly lit, adorned with rich tapestries that told stories of battles won, empires taken, and legacies forged in blood. The guards watched silently from the shadows, their eyes sharp, hands near weapons. Elara felt the weight of it all, the sense that every corner of this place had been designed to test loyalty and fear. And yet, she felt no fear. Not yet. Lucian led her to a smaller room near the inner courtyard. It was simple compared to the grand hall, yet still elegant, with a low fireplace, thick rugs, and windows that overlooked the storm. He gestured for her to sit. "You understand this isn't a request," he said. "You are not here as a guest. You are here under my protection, for now." Elara's jaw tightened. "Under your protection or under your control?" Lucian allowed a slow, measured smile. "That we will see." For a moment, silence hung between them, filled with unspoken questions and cautious curiosity. Lucian's world was one of power, precision, and fear. Elara's world was survival, instinct, and defiance. Somehow the night had thrown them together, two forces that neither fully understood. As the rain tapped against the window, memories of the ambush replayed in Lucian's mind. Most people would have screamed or frozen. Most people would have been dead. Yet she had acted first, without hesitation, without thought for herself. There was a fire in her, a light that could be dangerous, if not understood. And for reasons he did not yet know, he wanted to understand it. Elara, meanwhile, sat quietly, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. Her mind drifted to the moment when she had pulled the trigger. She had acted on instinct, yes, but instinct was born of experience. She had seen cruelty before, had learned to fight it, had learned that hesitation could be death. Yet even she did not understand the strange pull she felt towards the man whose life she had saved. The quiet was broken by a soft knock at the door. One of Lucian's lieutenants entered, bowing slightly. "Sir, the streets are calm. For now. No further signs of pursuit." Lucian nodded, his eyes never leaving Elara. "Good, leave us." The lieutenant stepped back, disappearing into the shadows. Lucian's gaze softened ever so slightly. "You are lucky," he said. "Most people do not survive a night like tonight, and even fewer survive the days after it. But luck will only carry you so far." Elara met his gaze steadily. "I don't rely on luck. I rely on my instincts, and I survive." Lucian tilted his head, studying her. There was defiance, yes, but also depth, pain, loss, and a strength that seemed born from hardship. He wondered what had shaped her, what shadows lingered in her past. And in the same instant he felt a strange connection, a pull toward her that was neither desire nor fear, but something else entirely. The next hours were quiet. Lucian went through documents and messages in the study, his mind always calculating, always prepared for betrayal. Elara explored the room slowly, careful not to offend, careful not to show fear. She noticed the subtle ways the mansion was fortified, the hidden doors, the reinforced windows, the silent guards who moved like shadows. It was a palace of secrets, and it made her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with recognition. She knew what it felt like to live among threats, to hide strengths, to measure every step. Finally, the storm outside began to subside. Rain pelted the roof in lighter drops, and the clouds shifted to reveal the faintest glow of the moon. Lucian closed his documents and approached her. "Tell me about yourself," he said, and for the first time his voice was curious rather than commanding. Elara hesitated. She had lived in a world where trust was rare, where questions often led to danger. But something in Lucian's eyes, the honesty, the control, the patience, made her want to speak. "My family," she began slowly, "was destroyed when I was young. I learned to survive because no one else would protect me. I learned to act first because hesitation meant death." Her eyes met his. "Tonight, I acted the same way." Lucian nodded, absorbing her words. He did not speak immediately. There was weight in what she said, a truth that resonated with his own experience. Power, loss, survival. It was a pattern he knew all too well. "You have strength," he said finally, "but strength alone does not guarantee survival in my world. There are rules, and there are consequences. You will need to understand both." Elara's lips pressed into a firm line. "I can handle consequences." Lucian's eyes flickered with interest. Few had ever spoken to him with such certainty. Fewer still had survived saying it. He wondered what else she could endure, and what secrets she still carried. The night deepened, and with it the bond between them grew, subtle and unspoken. They ate in silence, the conversation sparing, but every glance, every pause, every measured word carried meaning. Lucian tested her patience, her courage, her understanding of his world. Elara tested him in return, challenging him without overt defiance, showing that she was not merely a survivor, but someone who could adapt, anticipate, and act. Suddenly, a sound broke the quiet, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift from the outer gates. Lucian froze. His hand went to the weapon at his side, and his eyes scanned the shadows beyond the window. Elara followed his gaze, her instincts alive. "More trouble?" she asked, calm but alert. Lucian's jaw tightened. Perhaps, or perhaps curiosity. Someone is testing tonight. The mansion, with all its strength and walls, seemed suddenly vulnerable. Guards moved silently to positions. Doors were locked, and the air grew thick with anticipation. Lucian did not reach for her gun, but he did not step back from her either. There was an unspoken understanding. She would act if needed, and he would trust her to do so. "Stand close to me," he said quietly, his voice carrying both command and trust, "and do exactly as I do." Elara nodded. She felt a thrill, danger, yes, but also something deeper, something she could not name. It was not just fear or excitement. It was connection, unspoken and growing, binding her to this man in ways she did not yet understand. The shadows at the gate moved again, closer this time. A figure slipped through the rain, quiet, deliberate, trained. Lucian and Elara did not speak. They waited, watching, breathing, every sense alert. The intruder stepped into the faint light, revealing a face cloaked in darkness. Lucian's mind raced, calculating the possibilities. Elara's heart beat fast, her fingers tightening around the weapon she now carried with ease. And then, without warning, the figure lunged, and the night erupted once more into chaos. Ella reacted instinctively. The training of survival, the instinct to act first, surged through her. And this time she knew the danger was more than physical. It was something entwined with fate itself. Lucian moved beside her, their movements almost synchronized, a dance of power and trust. The intruder faltered under their combined precision. But before the fight could end, the figure spoke. A name, a warning, a truth that made both Lucian and Elara freeze. The name was familiar, too familiar. A name from the shadows of their pasts, a thread connecting them in ways neither had imagined. Lucian's eyes darkened. Elara's pulse quickened. The night had delivered them together once, but now it threatened to pull them apart with secrets neither could yet face. And in the silence that followed, only one thought remained. The world they knew was about to change forever. The storm had passed, but the mansion was not at peace. Shadows lingered in every corner, and the quiet held a tension that only a trained eye could notice. Lucian Drax moved through the halls with the silent grace of a predator. Every footstep, every glance, every calculated breath told of a man prepared for danger. And yet tonight, he was not the only one alert. Elara followed him, her senses sharp, heart still beating from the night's chaos. She had faced gunmen before, but the feeling of being part of Lucian's world was different. It was not just danger. It was control, power, and a weight that pressed against her chest like a storm waiting to break. They entered the study, a room lined with shelves of leather-bound books, documents, and artifacts collected over decades. Lucian's hands moved over the papers with precision, scanning letters and messages, while his mind worked through calculations and possibilities. Elara observed silently, noting the subtle strength in every movement, the way his shoulders held tension, the way his eyes darted to every shadow.
"You should rest," Lucian said finally, his voice breaking the quiet.
"You have faced more tonight than most would in a lifetime." Elara shook her head. "Rest is for those who survive." "I need to understand." Lucian's gaze lingered on her. "Understand what?" "My world, my empire." "Yes," she replied simply.
"And why this life? Why you trust me, even a little?"
For a moment, Lucian was quiet. That was rare. He rarely paused, rarely questioned, but something about her courage, her defiance, made him reconsider. She had acted instinctively, yet she survived, and in that survival she had drawn his attention. "You survive because you must," he said at last. "Not because you were lucky. And trust is earned, not given." "But perhaps," he paused, his eyes sharp yet thoughtful, "perhaps you have qualities I cannot ignore." Alara's gaze softened, though caution remained. She wanted answers, yet she knew Lucian did not give them easily. Before more could be said, a messenger arrived. A man cloaked in shadow carried a single envelope, sealed with a crest that sent a chill through both of them. Lucian took it, breaking the seal carefully, eyes scanning the message. Elara leaned closer. The words were brief, chilling. "Your guest carries more than courage. Her bloodline holds secrets long buried. Beware." Lucian's hand tightened on the envelope. His jaw hardened, and for the first time, Elara saw a flicker of something dangerous, something personal. "Secrets?" she asked, curiosity mixed with apprehension. "What secrets?" Lucian did not answer immediately. Instead, he studied her as if weighing the risk of revealing the truth. Finally, he spoke, slow and deliberate. "Your family, they were never ordinary. There are forces in the city and the world that do not forgive. You are part of a legacy, one that is intertwined with my own for decades." Elara's pulse quickened. She had suspected something about her past, hints and shadows, but never this. "My family?" she whispered. "What do you mean?" Lucian approached, his steps measured. "Long ago, your family made choices that affected more than their own lives. They were part of alliances, rivalries, and debts that extend even now. You are tied to them whether you know it or not." The weight of his words sank into her like cold water. She had lost her parents young, believed them to be victims of the city's cruelty. Yet Lucian's revelation suggested something else, something deliberate, planned, and dangerous. I don't understand," she said, struggling to catch her breath. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because it matters," Lucian replied. "Because their legacy has consequences. And because you are no longer alone. You may think you act freely, but forces will come for you. Forces that will not stop until they have what they seek." Alara's mind raced. Questions collided with fear, but also determination. "Then I fight," she said. "I've always fought." "And I won't let them take me or anyone else without a fight." Lucian's eyes softened slightly. "Good. You must understand the rules, though. The world you step into is not kind. Power is taken by those willing to embrace it fully. Survival is earned, and loyalty? Loyalty can be tested in ways you cannot imagine." Elara met his gaze, feeling both fear and exhilaration. She realized she was not only fighting for herself, but also for the man who had trusted her, the man who had drawn her into a world far larger than she had ever imagined. The night stretched on, filled with quiet study and whispered strategy. Lucian revealed glimpses of his empire, the alliances he had forged, the enemies he had made. He spoke of rival families, of debts owed in blood and honor, and of the delicate balance that kept his city under control. And through it all, Elara listened, learning, understanding, and preparing herself. She began to see the depth of Lucian's world, and the depth of his own character. He was ruthless when needed. Yet there were moments of restraint, of honor, and perhaps even compassion. Hours later, as the mansion grew quiet, a sudden noise shattered the calm. A shadow moved across the outer courtyard, deliberate and fast. Lucian's instincts flared instantly. He grabbed his weapon, signaling to Alara to follow. They moved as one, silent, precise. The figure paused under the dim light, revealing not a stranger, but someone familiar, a ghost from Alara's past. Her breath caught. The man stepped forward, his face illuminated by the moonlight. "Alara," he said softly, yet the tone carried warning and authority. "You should not have come here. You are in danger, more than you know." Lucian's eyes narrowed. "Who is this?" he demanded, his voice low but commanding. The man's gaze shifted to him, wary and measured. "Someone who knows the girl better than you think," he said. "Her bloodline carries a debt, one that cannot be ignored." Alara's mind reeled. Memories of her childhood, fragments of conversation she barely understood, faces she thought she had forgotten, all surged forward. The man's words confirmed fears she had buried long ago. Her past was not gone. It had followed her, silent and waiting, until now. Lucian studied the man carefully. He could sense the tension, the unspoken truths, the power dynamics at play. He did not lower his weapon, but neither did he act rashly. This was more than a threat. It was a revelation. The man continued, his eyes serious. "Your family was part of something much larger than you realize. They made choices that set in motion events that affect everyone here. And now, you are part of it." Alara's fingers tightened around her own weapon. "I will not run," she said firmly. "I will face whatever comes." Lucian's gaze softened as he observed her resolve. There was bravery here, yes, but also the weight of responsibility she had not asked for. He knew she would survive, not just because she was strong, but because she had the heart to face truths that many would flee from. The man's eyes lingered on Lucian for a moment. "You should know," he said finally, "that anyone who stands with her, any ally, will also be tested. And not all will survive." Lucian's jaw tightened. He felt the old patterns of his life pressing in, the calculated risks, the enemies hidden in plain sight, the delicate dance of power. But there was something different about this girl, something he could not ignore. He would protect her, yes, but more importantly, he would prepare her for the storm that was coming. The man stepped back into the shadows, leaving only silence behind. Alara exhaled slowly, her mind spinning with revelations and questions. She felt the weight of her lineage, the hidden dangers, and the knowledge that her life and Lucian's world was far more intertwined than she had imagined. Lucian approached her, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You see," he said quietly, "even when you survive the night, the world does not let you rest. Secrets follow you. Shadows follow you. And fate follows you, whether you like it or not." Alara nodded, understanding the truth in his words. She had acted with instinct before, yet now she knew that instinct alone would not be enough. Knowledge, strategy, and trust, these would be her weapons as well. And as they stood together in the quiet study, a bond unspoken but undeniable formed between them. They were allies now, bound by circumstance, courage, and the shared understanding that their fates were linked in ways neither fully grasped. But beyond the mansion walls, the night held more threats. Rivals, enemies, and hidden powers stirred, waiting for a chance to strike. Lucian and Alara would need to face them. And soon. The storm outside had ended, but the storm inside their lives was only beginning. The city slept under a thin veil of fog, its streets quiet but never safe. Inside the mansion, however, the air pulsed with urgency. Lucian Drax stood before a massive window, his hands clasped behind his back, eyes scanning the faint lights of the district below. Even from here, he could sense movement, shadows slipping between buildings, whispers carried by the wind. Danger was approaching, and it was relentless. Alara stood beside him, still learning the subtle ways of this world. Tonight she felt both anticipation and fear, but more than either, She felt a fierce determination. Her instincts had carried her this far, but now, instincts alone would not be enough. There was strategy, preparation, and a reckoning she could not avoid. "They're coming," Lucian said quietly, almost to himself. "A rival family has discovered your identity. Your bloodline, it carries a debt, a connection they cannot forgive." Elara swallowed, her fingers tightening on the edge of the windowsill. "I've faced threats before," she said. "But never like this. Not with people who know my past." "I don't even fully understand it myself." Lucian turned, his gaze sharp yet unreadable. "Then you will learn. Quickly. The past is not a memory here. It is a weapon. And they intend to use it." The mansion grew tense, every shadow seeming alive. Guards moved silently, positioning themselves while Lucian checked weapons and secure exits. But he did not focus solely on defense. He was planning an offensive as well. The rival Mafia lord would strike soon, but Lucian intended to strike back first. Elara followed him into the armory, a room she had not yet seen. Walls of steel, racks of weapons, and the faint smell of oil and gunpowder filled the space. Lucian's hand hovered over a rifle, checking its sights, his expression unreadable. "You must understand something," he said, breaking the silence. "Tonight, you are not just a bystander. You are part of this world now. You will face danger you cannot anticipate. You will need to act before thinking at times, but you must also learn when to wait." Elara nodded. "I can do that," she said, though her voice carried both determination and doubt. "I've survived before. I can survive again." Lucian studied her for a long moment. There was bravery here, yes, but also a glimmer of something darker, something raw and untamed. He could sense potential in her, abilities she did not yet understand, powers that had lain dormant for too long. "Your instincts are sharp," he said finally. "But your bloodline carries more than courage. You will need to understand what it can do, and what it might cost you." Before Elara could respond, the first warning came. A soft explosion in the outer courtyard shook the windows. Lucian's eyes narrowed instantly. "They are here," he said. "Get ready." Elara's heart raced. This was no longer theory or preparation. The threat had arrived. She followed Lucian to the balcony where they could see the enemy forces moving toward the mansion with precision. Trained soldiers in dark coats, weapons gleaming faintly in the moonlight. "They expect us to be afraid," Lucian said quietly. "They underestimate you." Elara exhaled slowly, focusing her mind. Fear was natural, but it could not control her. She drew in a deep breath, feeling the familiar pull of instinct, and, suddenly, a warmth spread through her, a sense of energy she had not fully recognized before. Her bloodline. It was awakening, responding to the threat in a way she could not yet explain. Lucian noticed it, the faint shimmer in her eyes, the subtle change in her posture. His mind worked quickly, calculating the possibilities. This power could be an advantage, or a danger if not controlled. The first wave of attackers reached the gates. Lucian's guards engaged them silently at first, but the fight quickly escalated. Shots rang out, metal clashed, and shadows moved like living things. Elara's instincts took over. She fired with precision, moving as if the mansion itself guided her. Each step, each action felt natural yet heightened, as if some unseen force was aiding her. Lucian fought beside her, silent and deadly, taking down enemies with controlled, precise movements. He glanced at her, recognizing the raw potential she displayed, and yet he saw the strain on her face. This power, while impressive, was demanding. It left marks, physical, yes, but emotional as well. "You can do this," he said quietly as they moved through the halls, clearing rooms with deadly efficiency. "But remember, strength alone will not protect you." Elara's mind raced. She had survived ambushes before, but this was different. She was part of something larger, a battle with stakes she did not yet fully understand. And yet she did not falter. Fear was present, but determination and courage burned brighter. Hours passed like minutes as the battle continued. The rival forces pressed, testing the mansion's defenses, probing for weakness. Elara and Lucian moved as one, trust growing silently between them, unspoken but undeniable. Every glance, every shared maneuver, deepened the connection. But then, amid the chaos, a shocking revelation emerged. One of the attackers carried a symbol, a crest that was familiar to Elara. It was the same as the one her family had borne, the one she had seen only in fragmented memories. "They know," she whispered, realization dawning. "They know about my family." Lucian's eyes darkened. "Then this is more than a simple attack. They are after something you carry. Something hidden in your lineage. They will not stop until they have it." Elara's hands tightened around her weapon. The fight was no longer just survival. It was about protecting secrets, protecting the legacy of her family, and protecting Lucian himself, who had placed trust in her courage. The mansion shook with another explosion. Lucian and Elara moved through the smoke and debris, finding themselves in the inner courtyard. Here, the battle intensified. Enemies advanced with relentless precision, but the pair stood firm. And then, something unexpected happened. A surge of energy burst from Elara, controlled yet powerful. It swept across the courtyard, throwing attackers off balance, forcing them to retreat. She felt a moment of exhilaration, but also exhaustion. This power, while remarkable, demanded everything from her. Lucian noticed approaching her with careful steps. "You are stronger than I imagined," he said, his voice low and steady. "But this is only the beginning. You must control it, or it will control you." Elara nodded, breathing heavily, feeling the weight of both power and responsibility. "I will learn," she said firmly. "I have to." The enemy forces regrouped, retreating into the shadows of the city, but Lucian knew this was temporary. They would return, stronger, more determined. The night was far from over. As the mansion settled into a tense quiet, Lucian and Elara stood together in the courtyard, soaked from rain, sweat, and the remnants of battle. Their eyes met, unspoken words passing between them. Trust, respect, understanding. They were no longer just allies. They were partners in a war that had only begun. And yet, even in this moment of victory, Lucian felt a shadow of unease. Something in the enemy's movement suggested a larger plan, a deeper threat that neither he nor Elara could yet see. "Elara," he said finally, his voice low, carrying both warning and certainty. "Tonight you proved yourself, but the real challenge is coming. They will not stop. And neither can we." Elara's gaze was steady, her determination unwavering. "Then we face it," she said simply. "Together." Lucian studied her for a long moment. In her courage, her raw power, and her defiance, he saw something rare, a spark that could ignite hope, change the course of the city, and perhaps even change him. But fate was not done. As they turned to enter the mansion, a single figure emerged from the shadows, silent, deliberate, and deadly. The moonlight glinted off the edge of a weapon. Lucian's instincts flared instantly. "Elara," he warned, placing himself in front of her. The figure stepped closer, and a voice carried over the courtyard, calm yet filled with menace. "The girl has power, yes," it said, "but power without guidance is dangerous, and you, Drax, will learn that soon enough." Lucian's eyes narrowed, his mind calculating every possibility. Alara's fingers tightened around her weapon, ready. The night had turned darker, more dangerous than either of them could have anticipated, and in that moment both knew the next move would decide everything. Their trust, their survival, and the future of the city itself.